Isaiah Likely's pending free agency has been a hot topic of conversation surrounding the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson sent a simple message on it.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here on this Tuesday edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage, now twice per day, 6 a.m. Eastern time here at the regular show, and then 6 p.m. for Locked On Ravens PM, where we give you just an update throughout the day. Thanks to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. And on today's show, late at night on Monday, Lamar Jackson put out a post that has social media buzzing, and it was literally just one word with a couple of emojis, and it has everybody in a frenzy right now. It relates to Isaiah Likely, so we'll talk about that. None of the second and third parts of the show. Before all that happened, I recorded an interview with former Ravens receiver Mark Clayton, and so I'm going to play 2 segments from that, and then we'll play the final one on our show later in the week. So really excited because that interview was awesome. Mark was awesome. Really excited to share that conversation both today and, of course, over the rest of the week as well. So we'll talk about Isaiah Likely, Lamar Jackson here in the first segment. And then, of course, we'll get into the interview with Mark in the second and third segments. Let's dive into this Isaiah Likely thing, though. So this was something that, again, very late at night, Lamar Jackson responded to a post about 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. Bleacher Report posted earlier in the day on Monday, Isaiah Likely will be a blank. And obviously the prompt is fill in his next team. And Lamar Jackson responded and said Ravens with 3 prayer hands emojis and 1 purple heart emoji. So again, this was a very simple post by Lamar Jackson, but I think it tells a message and sends a message. Is it to the Ravens? Is it to Isaiah Likely? Probably a little bit of both. You know, I'm not going to completely speculate over just one word. Of course, the response to this, and this is, again, late at night responses, are the fact that, you know, make him stay. And, you know, there's all this stuff about Lamar sign the extension, free up more money. You know, you can do this. Again, I feel like for Isaiah Likely, it's obviously the money, but it goes beyond the money with Isaiah to me. But that was the whole response to it. It's like, sign your contract, do this, do that. And I was like, hold on. Lamar's just expressing that he wants his teammate back. And this all does add up because if you remember on Locked On Ravens PM, we talked about it last week. And honestly, just on the show in general, we talked about it last week. Just really get the Athletic reporting that Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely have a good relationship and in a close relationship and stuff along those lines. So he wants his guy back. Obviously, a lot of Ravens fans want Isaiah to come back. Unfortunately, I don't think, you know, even with Lamar's pleas, it's going to do too much. Now, there is a possibility, though. Again, you can't rule anything out because when Lamar, your franchise quarterback, he wants something to happen, got to at least take it into consideration. And I'm sure the Ravens don't want to just lose Isaiah Likely for nothing. It's been a topic we've talked about for the past week or so. But in reality, in my opinion, I'll say it again, the Ravens made their choice when they signed Mark Andrews to an extension. I think it was a mistake that they did that. It's not that Mark is a bad player. I just think that Isaiah has a lot more upside, both, in my opinion, short-term and long-term for whatever team he plays for than Mark Andrews. So I think it's going to be a disappointing result for Lamar, unfortunately, with Isaiah Likely either way, whether Lamar signs an extension or not. Obviously, the extension would be great if Lamar is able to sign it and, you know, just kind of get that out of the way. Lamar has earned an extension and a pay raise and a lot of money. You know, it really helped the Ravens out in terms of their cap situation. But with Isaiah Likely, what his comments have told us over the last week, and especially with that John Gruden interview that dropped, that he wants a place where he can flourish. And, you know, he had a great vet, Mark Andrews, he said, but all accounts, he wants to be the guy somewhere. And they made their choice of Mark Andrews. As long as Mark Andrews is around, Isaiah Likely is not going to be the guy in Baltimore. And, you know, actually, if I look up Mark Andrews and his contract right now, Mark Andrews, Ravens contract, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that contract, so it is technically, it could really only be a 1-year deal, where they can get out of Mark's deal after next season where they could save about $9 million-ish, a little over $9 million if they cut Mark Andrews after 2027. I mean, how much of a gut punch would that be if this Mark Andrews is a 3-year extension, but what if it only lasts one season? The Ravens get out of it after next year, and Isaiah Likely's off somewhere putting up awesome numbers and being the guy somewhere, when that could have been the Ravens' reality. Feels very Mike McDonald-esque in a way, except this situation feels a lot more avoidable than the McDonald situation. With the McDonald situation, that was tough on all accounts because the Ravens have made the AFC Championship game, and regardless of whether you were on the fire Harbaugh train or not fire Harbaugh train after that, the reality was the Ravens were not letting go of Harbaugh after making the AFC Championship and finally getting there for the first time under Lamar Jackson. With the Andrews and Likely situation, they had a choice here, and they could have chosen to give that money to Likely. And again, I don't know how that contract negotiation went during the offseason. There were a lot of rumblings and rumors that Likely was offered this, and he turned down that, and this is what happened, and then the injury and all this stuff. But in reality, it was always going to come down to one of them, in my opinion. And Lamar Jackson, I mean, look, I don't blame him for wanting Likely back. I think he and Likely, despite the injury situation for both of those guys last season, especially the year prior, were able to establish a sort of rapport. Not that Mark and Lamar don't have it, but it never made sense to me how we got here with Likely. I always assumed that it was going to be Likely, but the reality is, Andrews gets that $13 million. I know Spelltrack has Likely's number at about $8.8 million per season. I project him to get more than that. I expect anywhere from 10 to 14 million for Likely per season. And, it's one thing for the Ravens. Yeah. Is it smart to pay 2 tight ends $10+ million per season or whatever it is? No, probably not. But at the same time, Likely's such a valuable piece to this offense. So, it's cool that Lamar put out a public display of, supporting his guy, hoping that his guy comes back. I mean, that's what you can take away from him saying the Ravens, and then 3 prayer hands and a Purple Heart emoji. Again, I'm not speculating on the comment for 10 minutes. I want to talk about the conversation surrounding it, but I do think it was cool that Lamar did do that. But I mean, again, I just feel like Likely wouldn't be able to flourish the way he wanted to in Baltimore. And I just have this sinking feeling in my mind, if I'm being honest, that this Andrews deal is just going to be a 1-year contract. They're going to cut him after next year for the cap savings, and Likely will be off flourishing somewhere for what? That to me would be a very disappointing outcome. I don't know how all those conversations went, like I mentioned, but if Likely does leave and nothing's set in stone until it happens, maybe Lamar Magic can make Likely come back to Baltimore for 1 more year. Because maybe that's the selling point, right? Is you say to Likely, we're going to sign you to a 1-year deal at whatever AAV it is, and we're going to give you this money per season, or for this one season, or maybe it could be a 2-year deal at a certain level of money, but I'm sure Likely would just want the 1-year contract. Then they say to Isaiah, Mark's contract is a 1-year deal. Run it back for 1 more year. Get your stock to wherever you feel like it's most comfortable for you. Because again, Likely didn't have the best year last season, obviously, with the injury situation. The offense was weird. It was just a weird year. So if Likely can have a more resurgent season than last year, you can tell Isaiah, hey, stay with us for 1 more season, sign a 1-year deal with us. Mark's gone after this season. The tight end room is yours. Kind of like what Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta, that whole thing. DeCosta was getting requested for interviews, but DeCosta was essentially said, hey, this is your job once Ozzie leaves. It could be the same thing with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. That is the one hope that I am holding on to. And maybe if Lamar really starts pounding the table and pushing for it, something like that happens. But it all, in my opinion, would have to happen under the assumption that if Likely returns on a 1-year deal, that would be something that you would then promise to Isaiah of saying, hey, next year, tight end room is yours. You're the guy for us. And Mark is going to be out of the door. So I don't know. Maybe this changes things. I feel like I've talked myself into some optimism, but my prediction is that he probably still goes. Coming up, though, in the second part of the show, we'll be diving into our interview with Mark Clayton, former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver. Stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by HomeChef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where HomeChef comes in. HomeChef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. There are over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality, with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Back here, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here again and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here for you. Of course, we have the regular show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also have added Locked On Ravens PM Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So twice a day, we give you Ravens coverage every day on Locked On Ravens on the weekdays. Plus, that's on top of everything else. We give you like bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines. You got instant reaction shows after pieces of Ravens breaking news, as well as during the season during games. We have Locked On Ravens watch-alongs during the season during games, as well as a Locked On Ravens squad show. Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Myself, Sam Njoku, former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail, chopping it up there. And the Everydayer Club for Locked On Ravens, which is now live, where you get one-on-one text access and conversations with me, Discord access, ad-free episodes, weekly Q&As, and a lot more. So links in the description below for that, as well as on the Locked On Ravens page on the Locked On Ravens website. And we might go live after Eric DeCosta and Jesse Minter speak to the media on Tuesday here today. I think Eric DeCosta is speaking at 10:15 a.m. and Jesse Minter is talking at noon. So if there is a huge headline from that, we'll be going live for that. But if not, we'll talk about it on Locked On Ravens PM at 6 p.m. today. Let's get to our interview with Mark Clayton. Again, we're going to play 2 segments from that here today in the second and third segments. And then we're going to be diving into the rest of that on a show later this week. So without any further ado, let's get into our interview with Mark Clayton. Mark, I'm glad to have you back. Thanks for joining again. How's everything been for you? I know this was a weird season, very un-Raven-like for the Ravens this past season in terms of how it went.
Certainly. It was tough to see not having the dominant defense that we're so accustomed to. But yeah, man, good to see you, Kevin. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, I'm pumped to talk about everything that happened with you. Let's just start with what happened. You mentioned the defense, and it, like I mentioned, un-Raven, like that defense, it was tough to watch. Zach Orton, his second season, just never really got his footing. They went through a couple of injuries, but it just never really felt like, especially after that really tough start that they had, they were able to fully bounce back. I mean, it got better as the season went on, but the bar was pretty low to begin with based off of how they started. I mean, was that really the main thing for you, Mark? The defense really just never found their footing because there were injuries, there was poor offensive line play, there was a lot that was going on. But man, that defense was just tough to watch for the majority of the year.
So hard to watch, so hard. And to me, as you know, and many people know, defense wins championships. And that's the beautiful value of a defense, is being able to know that you're going to be in a game and have an opportunity to win the game because the defense is going to keep teams from scoring. And to watch the Baltimore Ravens defense perform so lackluster, we almost say passive in a sense, whereas we've been one of the more aggressive defenses in the league for years, was very hard to see, man. And I think, I'm looking forward to everything that's coming down the pipe, especially who's going to be at the helm of the play calling now. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot, we can't get any worse. And I think there's a lot of upside potential where we're at.
Yeah, there's definitely optimism for me. And Mark, I didn't really know if the Ravens were going to move on from John Harbaugh or not. Obviously, you missed the playoffs on a kick, and there's a lot of question about the consistency this organization has had over the course of John Harbaugh's tenure. Was that what they were going to go with? The comfortability and familiarity of that. The Ravens do decide to move on. I personally believe it was time. Obviously, Mark, you were there for the last coaching change from Brian Billick to John Harbaugh, and then it was 18 years until we had to talk about it again. I mean, For you, was this the proper ending point, in your opinion, for John Harbaugh's tenure? Do you think they needed a new voice, and was that a factor in how the season went, do you think?
Yeah, it felt like it. When you look at an organization and their, vow to win a championship year in and year out. I feel like you with your staff, you want to know that you have an identity when you are in the season and developing an identity as the season goes on. But I felt like with our guys, year after year, we would kind of be something, and then in a critical time, not be who we had been before. Where we've shown, dominant in the run game, AFC Championship season, getting the AFC Championship game. Where's the run game? Last year, I mean, our defense have fluttered the last couple of seasons, but found ways to put us in positions to win a game and go on to the next round of the playoffs. To devastating, I would consider last year's a playoff loss as well, devastating losses on the back of kind of insecurity. Like we didn't know what we were going to get out of our team, going into those games, which is tough. And I feel like with the staff kind of, leading an organization, leading the offense, leading the defense, especially in Baltimore, we got to know we're going into the game and they know we're going to be the most aggressive, the most tenacious defense on the field. In order to beat us, you're just going to have to make tough plays. I felt like teams were not afraid of our defense this year, or the last year for that matter. And on offense, I feel like we just I loved, our creativity. I loved some of what we did in the run game and the QB run game. I mean, we were all across the board in terms of what we could do offensively, but we never found and kind of stuck to a thing week in, week out offensively. I feel like we were trying to be something different each week, and I think in the end, it cost us. So I mean, I know this group is going to, bring in with some of the prior Raven ties, going to, continue to have some of that Raven fabric that we're accustomed to. I'm sure that's going to be there. But I'm looking forward to a more, I guess, consistent identity across the board, offense, defense, and special teams with Levine leading that as well. But yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch, our offense do everything and Lamar do everything that he's done. And I thought Monken was a great hire at that time, and he brought a ton of creativity, a ton of, big plays, and, really allowing Derrick Henry to have two incredible seasons. Yet, just when we've needed it most, it was like I didn't understand why we wasn't getting it. And so I think it was like, for whatever reason, I think a change was warranted. It's going to offer us, I think, a fresh start, new hope, new beginning, new identity-ish, and just looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of excitement because I do think Todd Monken was a really good coordinator for this team.
Yeah.
Yes, and nobody comes without flaws, Mark, but I do think that at the end of the day, he really helped Lamar spread his wings and grow. And I'm hoping that Declan Doyle can do the same thing. That's who Jesse Minter decided to hire for the offensive coordinator spot. Now, they're the same age, and I know a lot of people are kind of freaking out about that a little bit, but he's been around coaching for a while. You made some comments recently about players being at OTAs, and everybody wanted to spin it to, oh, he's calling out Lamar and saying Lamar has to be there and all this. I think, look, first of all, he wasn't calling anybody out, but I do think his comments were true of like, look, if you want to be a championship team, it's important to start, especially in a new system in the offseason and trying to get acclimated to everything. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't him being all mean about it. It was just like, hey, it's voluntary. But of course, the expectation is for those guys to be there. So what are your thoughts about Declan Doyle, those comments in particular, and also the fact that, this offense is probably going to look a little different this year considering what Declan Doyle did in Chicago?
Man, I actually saw a clip of Unc and Ocho.
Yeah.
About it. It was hilarious. And Ocho, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but Unc, he killed it with his point in terms of Tom Brady. And if it is the goal of an organization to win a Super Bowl championship, anytime you start new, you need 10,000 reps at that thing. And if this is the goal, I think it would behoove Lamar to obviously be in as soon as possible to get started on the season, because they're going to be the language may be a little different. I mean, there's going to be different nuances, a lot of things that they need to develop their relationship, him and OC, and all that stuff needs to happen. And it's always better to start sooner rather than later, especially at the QB position. And so, yeah, of course, you should be there to get started. Like, he probably wants to be there. Like, yeah, he probably, been like, that's not Lamar wants to win the championship. And I believe he's going to do everything it takes to win the championship.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like, Mark, everybody's assuming that he's just not going to be there
Yeah.
because, it's like, we don't know if Lamar's going to be there or not. But again, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was there for the first year of Todd Monken, and I believe he was also there for the first year of Greg Roman. So again, I think the conversation is already just people are pre-anticipating that, like, oh, Lamar's not going to show up, and then we're going to talk about all this. And it's like, we don't know if Lamar's going to be there or not. By the way, I mean, look, yeah, it's important that he is there, in my opinion, but it is voluntary. And if he doesn't decide to show up, that is his decision. If it was mandatory minicamp, well, that'd be a different conversation. But, there's a whole situation there. Is that kind of, though, Mark, what you went through a little bit, changing over from Billick to Harbaugh? Was there that added sense of urgency of like, all right, we need to learn all this stuff, and there's a new staff in the building. Let's try to get as up to speed as possible?
Yeah, most definitely. It was Cam Cameron was picked to be OC that year, and absolutely. I mean, when the quarterback commits, that makes a huge statement. It says that because an organization is run quarterback down, offense is run quarterback down, and for Lamar to step in voluntary camp, it obviously communicates, hey, I'm here to win. If he doesn't mean that he's not going to get it. Doesn't mean that he's not going to have the offense down, or OTAs are not going to be efficient. They're not going to they're not going to be a great offense, and Lamar's not going to be a great player. I do think it sends a different message if he does go. Like, I think it speaks volumes versus him not going. And when I made that change and Cam Cameron came in, it was the same thing. I mean, as I was still a young player, and so really needed to be in and get as many reps and of hearing the offense and going over the playbook and knowing, Cam's thoughts and how he saw the game, how he approached, breaking down defenses, and what his routes were, and all that stuff. And so, I mean, it wasn't even a thought to not be there when it was time for us to start, install with the new offense.
And that's the thing, right? Where I do believe Lamar will show up and he will be there. If he's not, then, that's going to be a talking point and a conversation point. But like you said, Lamar is competitive. He wants to win a championship. We've seen him grow as a leader and come into that role. Now, again, OTAs and reps and all that, like, does Lamar need every single rep of OTAs? No, I mean, he's been there, he's done that. But it's just about, again, working with your new position coaches, working with that. And again, it's not just about Lamar either. It's about everybody on the team, where there was no mention of Lamar in those comments from Declan Doyle. But all of a sudden, it's become like the biggest story in Baltimore of like, oh, look what Declan Doyle said about Lamar. And I'm like, no, he didn't say it about Lamar. He said it about everybody. So it's all this huge, big controversy point, which I was like, okay. But Lamar's season, Mark, was definitely a trying one compared to previous seasons. A lot of that had to do with the fact that obviously he was injured for a large part of it. Really didn't feel like he could be himself. It felt like, to me at least, and started off the season really strong, but then the injuries hit. Poor offensive line play, I think, really played a key part in that. There are other factors as well, but looking at that offense, Mark, was there anything that stuck out to you in terms of Lamar, kind of what's going on? Because people look at his season now and are trying to dock him or the Ravens from like elite status or territory. And I'm like, look, teams have down years, players have down years. Lamar was also injured. I think that he can bounce back in a big way, but I do think last year was definitely a challenging one for him for a lot of different reasons.
No, most definitely. I think, the injuries are starting to stack up. And I think I would say this. All right. Lamar has become an elite passer, which I've always hoped for, and is tremendous for the Baltimore Ravens. With that, I think Lamar has lost a step when it comes to making people miss in transition down the field. Lamar has incredible escapability. No doubt about that. From in the pocket, working the pocket, he fills the pocket in a very elite way. Like he's crazy. He's just, and I think that's been a big part of him becoming an elite passer, his pocket presence and being able to move in the pocket and keep plays going and allow receivers to uncover down the field, and then making the throws. What I would say, my expectations for Lamar on the top half of his career is to continue to grow as a passer. My hope is that we continue to build the run game around Derrick and our backs. That becomes more. I mean, and we got Declan, and that looks kind of like a Chicago offense, to be honest. Run the ball, play big waggle passes, play action passes, but off of really, a lot of run. I mean, we got the guys, and I mean, I know they're going to make some changes up front, but I'm excited for the fact that Lamar has become an elite passer, and we can drop back pass, but we don't have to drop back pass so much, especially when you got that monster in the backfield plus the supporting cast. And so, with that, my hope is that we don't have to depend on Lamar's legs as much anymore, because I do think those injuries have taken a little toll on him. Just watching, a lot of the moves he would make as he began to accelerate to, in a way, make the first guy miss, not in the pocket, not in the backfield, not that first one, but the one down the field as he's starting to go down the field has become more of a cha-cha-cha-cha, like a slowdown instead of a one stick, boom, go the other direction, like sudden, without losing speed, put one foot in the ground and go the other way. That is not, I haven't seen that Lamar lately, which is perfectly fine because we don't need that. we don't need that. We need Lamar to stay healthy. We need him to work the pocket. We need the run game to be the run game and the occasional QB, run to keep defenses honest. With that, I think what's coming in is going to suit him perfectly fine.
I'm excited to see because I think that you can play off of Lamar's strength with his arm and strength with his legs and say that, the legs are still a huge part of the Ravens offense, but not being like, okay, Lamar, please save us with your legs every single time, or please save us with your arm every single time something goes wrong. Is being able to build off of that and still have the threat of Lamar Jackson's legs, because it is such an important part of just, confusing a defense, running guys off with him. But at the same time, being able to know that, in Chicago, they did things a little differently. Declan's not just going to pick up the Chicago offense and put it down in Baltimore and say, here's what we're doing. There's going to be implementations of certain things, but I'm excited to see how it all goes. And I do think that a fully healthy Lamar can get back to that elite dominance, both obviously as a runner and as a thrower. Coming up, Mark and I'll be talking about Jesse Minter and the state of the Ravens, as well as some offseason strategy. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It has that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future. You get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with Mark Clayton, former Ravens receiver, talking everything about this Baltimore Ravens team. A lot of change. Thanks so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day as well. And Mark, Jesse Minter, we talked a lot about Declan Doyle, but we skipped over the head guy in Jesse Minter. So I need to take it back a little bit, talk about the hire that made the other hires. Jesse Minter is a guy that comes and obviously went to Los Angeles, was at Michigan, was in Baltimore, and that's really where he was able to kind of establish himself. He was at Vanderbilt for a little bit as well. But the former Raven connection, I think, had some people worried about, okay, is this just going to be another John Harbaugh? I don't think so. I mean, again, there are good qualities John Harbaugh had that I'm sure Jesse Minter was able to kind of take with him. But at the same time, I think that, like Jesse Minter talked about, he's not looking to be the next John or Jim Harbaugh. He's looking to just do his own thing and kind of carve out his own legacy. And so I think, in my opinion, Jesse was a great hire. He's a coach that was really popular in the coaching cycle. I think he brings a nice influx of talent, both from the coaching staff aspect of it, but I think he might be able to bring a couple of players over potentially, which could be really cool. Maybe a Khalil Mack or something along those lines would be pretty nice. But what was your thought process on the hire, Mark, and how did you like it?
I like it. I like young, talented coaches. I think, there's just something about that mentality, that the connectability with players. I think the excitement they bring, and the creativity, quite frankly. And so, I was very pleased with the hire. And, obviously we see what the Chargers have been year in, year out. And so, to me, if any of that comes to Baltimore, it will definitely upgrade what we've been on that side of the ball for the last couple of years. And so, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm pumped. And to me, I think that Jesse just brings this added level of, I don't want to say urgency, but it felt like, Mark, even towards the end of John Harbaugh's tenure, I don't want to say lax or anything, but there was an interview on the lounge and he was asking about the whole Super Bowl or bust thing, or he was talking about it, and he ended up saying well, all that stuff essentially is baloney. And he doesn't oh, that stuff is great. I'm just well, I don't think that's a great mindset to have in terms of you're trying to win a championship and the culture feels pretty relaxed. I mean, it felt like to me, Mark, Jesse Minter was embracing the high expectations, was embracing the high standards, and he honestly wanted to create those within the building himself, which I'm really excited for. And to me, I think that, with Harbaugh, there was a lot that kind of went sideways towards the end, especially because it feels like, and it's unfortunate that, Harbaugh essentially now in Baltimore is kind of remembered for oh, this is how it ended. I wanted to be remembered for the Super Bowl and for the earlier, obviously, going to the AFC Championship game in 2008 with Joe and John as rookies and all that. That's something, and a lot of other things as well. So I think Jesse brings it's a refreshing new perspective that I just think it was time for.
Yeah, I agree. It's refreshing. And I, thinking through Harbaugh and how he was, and I can kind of feel some of that sentiment in terms of watching certain interviews and knowing how big of or how catastrophic of a thing or a loss or something may have been, and was kind of expecting, and it is to the public, but was kind of expecting a little more the moment being that devastating to him as well. And it, it kind of wasn't out. And then in the locker room, in meetings, I don't know what, went on behind the scenes or in the locker room or anything, but I find it hard to believe that Harbaugh was where he was early, where, it was, we had something to prove, and he was making sure that everybody was on their P's and Q's, and he was calling people out, making sure that everybody was taking care of their business. I don't know where the organization was at, as of late, but I feel like it was kind of more of a hands-off kind of approach for Harbaugh, and his focus was more on just relationship with the guys, which I think is extremely important as well. And then allowing the players to kind of manage the players, so to speak, which is a good dynamic. But I felt like there was so much inconsistency in the team that maybe at some point, the coaches needed to step in to kind of, light a fire on the guys, so to speak.
And that also was a big thing about just what's the messaging that's being put across right now, and do the players believe in the messaging that's being put across in the locker room? And again, I don't have the answer to that, whether it was yes or no. There were some questions asked about it, and there were some interesting answers at times. But Mark, again, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for hopping on. Before I get you out of here, please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Live Audio, livaudio.com. Grab you the #1 workout headphone on the market. Check us out.
Boom. Links will be in the description down below. Be sure to check it out and go support Mark. They are great, by the way, I do want to say. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you for tuning into the show. On the way out, be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens covers coming up. More Ravens content and coverage here for you. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.